A special thank you to the organizers for inviting Zoona here. I'm coming all the way from Zambia, and it's my first time in Nigeria, and it's a very pleasant place to be in. My talk is on being deliberate about financial inclusion in strategy. And I'll start my presentation with a quote from the ventureburn.com, just to give you a little bit more context about what I'll be discussing. VentureBurn quotes a Media Networks report which states that 84% of SMEs in Africa are either unserved or underserved, representing a value gap in credit financing of 140 to 170 billion US dollars. Now, 84% is a big problem, but again, this also gives a very big opportunity for us as mobile money providers. I feel that it's time for us to start looking beyond the first level products, which my colleague from MFINO said, to the second level products and indeed the third level products, starting to think about what are people really in need of. Can we extend this service from money transfers into credit and so on? To tell you about Zoona and the work that we're doing in Zambia and to a small extent in Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Mozambique, I'll share with you two stories. The first story is about Sandra, a 19-year-old girl who, after completing high school, her parents couldn't afford to take her to university. So here she was, she couldn't find a job and her parents couldn't afford to take her to tertiary education. She comes across an opportunity to become a Zoona agent, and she thinks to herself very quickly and discourages herself, as she shared with me, who in the world would really think about investing time and money in a 19-year-old who has just finished high school and has no tertiary education? The second story is about Phiri Simanya, who is a micro distributor for Coca-Cola. So he buys Coca-Cola at a wholesale price and also redistributes it at a wholesale price within his community. Now he orders Coca-Cola at least twice a week. And each time he ordered, he would have to travel about 35 kilometers to where the depot was with a bag of cash, get on 2 buses, and he would have to close his shop and probably lose like half to a full day just doing that transaction. This happened every week, at least twice a week. So now, this is a fact sheet on Sandra. In June of 2010, Sandra was age 19. She only had a high school certificate. She was unemployed. She had an income of nil, and her marital status was single, and her parents couldn't afford to take her to school. She became a Zoona agent. And the Zoona agent is a small entrepreneur, small and micro entrepreneur, who decides to leverage our platform to provide over-the-counter transactions to customers. So this is anything from money transfers to airtime payments to bill payments. They do this either from a kiosk or from a retail shop if they've got one. Fast forward to January this year, and this is a fact sheet on Sandra. She's now age 23. She's self-sponsoring herself to university. She's a second-year student in finance. She's an entrepreneur with 6 business locations, employs 10 tellers, and with a Zoona Partner entrepreneurial project, she's empowering 4 of her tellers to become business owners of their own. Her income is just over 9,000 per month, which is arguably what some of managers across Africa are earning. And she's now married. So that's her chart of her transactions. That's the growth in red of her personal commissions, and that's the number of transactions that she's servicing and how they've grown over the last 4 years. A fact sheet on Phiri Simanya. So in July of 2012, he was an entrepreneur. His payments were mainly made in cash. His storage of value, again, was cash. He had no access to formal credit, and informal credit was just a little bit too expensive for him. There was no data on his transactions. He didn't really know who was buying, how often, at what time. And the cost of doing business was very high for him because every day he would have to close his shop for a whole day, twice a week. And the risk was also very high. Fast forward this to January. Terry is an entrepreneur. His payments are electronic. His storage of value is now banked or mobile wallet. He has access to finance because through a proven track record of servicing an appropriate finance debt solution, we have provided him with some financing. And now he's got data records on not only his own transactions, but also on his customers' transactions. So now he knows who's buying from him, how often, and this way he can incentivize them further. And his cost of doing business is significantly reduced. Now, both of these problems and both of these stories are typical African stories. the problem of unemployment and the problem of the high cost of doing business in cash. But these don't have to continue being African problems, because as long as we can keep being innovative as mobile money providers, we can offer solutions to these problems. So we at Zoona are passionate about helping businesses grow and will be the best in the world at providing business solutions to micro and small entrepreneurs in emerging markets. So we are interested in the small B to big B type businesses. And I know different mobile money providers will be interested in different things. M-Pesa was mainly around P2P, but we are looking very much into the small micro and small enterprises. And our solution is based in 3 parts. Number 1, we offer a payment solution, which provides easy, quick, safe payment solutions to reduce transaction costs. And from this, takes us to the second part of our model. We make sure that we're collecting data in each and every of these transactions. So we capture and analyze electronic data flows to unlock new opportunities. And through this data analysis, we realize what actually people are needing out there. What are these small and medium enterprises needing? From that came our third part of the business, which was financial solutions. A lot of these entrepreneurs were looking for more financing to expand their businesses or to open a new location and to grow further. But they didn't have this access from the formal financial system. So we decided to facilitate accessible and affordable working capital financing to drive growth. We have partnered with kiva.org, which is a crowdfunding site where we profile some of our agents and distributors, and people can fund them from across the world. This is something that anybody can easily do. We believe in collaboration and believe that collaboration is indeed the new competition. And so instead of us trying to reinvent the wheel and start to use our own balance sheet to fund these agents, we have partnered with somebody else who's already doing that. So an entrepreneur like Sandra got $6,000 from Kiva, and she expanded to 6 locations in just 4 years and has been able to employ 10 people. Mr. Simanya borrowed $3,000, and he's been able to expand his operations to 2 locations as well in just over 2 years. And as we grow, our market in Zambia is still quite in its infancy, but as we grow, we're starting to see the real importance of engaging regulators, because regulators are our partners. And if we don't engage and if we don't discuss, then it will be very difficult for us to keep expanding mobile money adoption across the country and across the continent. So our approach has always been, with everything that we start out, number 1 is we experiment with just one. So we experiment with one agent, test a new idea or proposition. But even at this stage, we're very open and transparent with our regulator on what exactly we're doing. And luckily, our regulator, who's the Central Bank of Zambia, are very open to learning, they're very open to engaging, and they're very open to giving advice on how they feel we should approach each of our experiments. From experimenting, we take it to 5. So we take 5 agents, and let's say we do a pilot to expand the use case and develop operational capabilities. When we pilot, we then share the results with the regulator as well. So even with Kiva, we started with 1, expanded this to 5, and when we saw that it was working, we then expanded it to all. And we feel it's only at this stage that then the regulator can come in and really put in regulation if necessary, because you cannot regulate what doesn't exist. And so mobile money operators need this space in order to experiment and pilot products. And if we are to work together to enable financial inclusion in our markets, we feel it's really important that the regulators are working with us and helping us to enable this environment. And some of the things have already been mentioned by some of the previous speakers, but it's starting to look at things which will work in each of our markets. It's well and good to copy and paste, but some of the things might not be relevant to a specific market. Like for us in Zambia, we found that in central Lusaka, money transfers were booming really well, but in some parts of the Copper Belt, which is a little bit north of Lusaka, it wasn't really going that strongly. And when we introduced bill payments, some of the agents who could have been considered average really started to boom, because there, the bill payments were just not available. They would have one electricity supplier in a whole town. And so when we introduced these products, it started to get bigger and bigger. But with each of these things, like some of our suggestions around how we can really enable this environment is to think about a risk-based tiered KYC. I think somebody else spoke about that. It's really starting to think, like, is there risk in a person going up to an agent and saying, I'd like to send money to my uncle up north? where is the risk? Does he have to bring a proof of payment, proof of address? And most of the times we don't even have proof of address in Zambia. In about maybe 20% of the population don't have proof of address. So who then needs to have this higher level of KYC? Maybe it's the agent because he's storing value. And our regulator insists that at agent level, and acceptably so, you need to have a company registration, you need to have a proof of address, and you need to have a tax identification number. He's starting to think of electronic KYC to make registration faster. Instead of filling out forms, then trying to store everything in paper, starting to think about electronic KYC. He's looking at tax incentives for mobile money operators. He's thinking about trying to reduce barriers to market entry. Because I believe the smaller companies that come in sometimes are more agile and more innovative and can offer more relevant solutions. And so starting to reduce these barriers to market entry. It's working together with regulators to invest in financial literacy, working with big businesses that connect to small businesses to make this flow of cash easier between the two of them. It's providing market development and market compliance incentives for both big businesses and small businesses. And finally, it's avoiding legislation and administration that encourages informality. And we really believe if we work together as industry players, we collaborate more. We recently partnered with Airtel Money to provide a cash-in, cash-out solution for their Airtel Money subscribers. And this has worked well because we've leveraged our strengths. They're big, they've got experience from different markets, and they're the leading GSM provider. We are innovative and agile and have mastered the art of agent management. And so working together has really turned out right. If we continue to work together, then we can really enable our environment and financial inclusion will not be a big problem. Thank you.